In the 6th century AD, the Mediterranean world was a fractured shadow of its former self. The great Western Roman Empire had fallen decades earlier, its territories carved up by Gothic, Vandal, and Frankish kings. Yet in the East, the Roman eagle still flew. From the capital of Constantinople, the empire endured, wealthy and sophisticated, but seemingly cut off from its ancient roots in Italy. Enter Justinian I. Reigning from 527 to 565 AD, he stands as a colossal figure in history, a man who refused to accept that Rome had fallen. His reign was defined by a singular, overwhelming ambition, renovatio imperii, or the restoration of the empire. He sought not merely to survive, but to turn back the clock, to recover the lost provinces of the West, and to unite the Mediterranean once more under one law, one church, and one emperor. Justinian is often called the last Roman. He was a native Latin speaker on a throne that was becoming increasingly Greek. His vision transformed the ancient world into the medieval one. Under his rule, the empire reached its greatest territorial extent since the fall of the West, reclaiming North Africa, Italy, and southern Spain. But this dream of restoration came at a staggering cost. It was an era of monumental glory, witnessing the construction of the Hagia Sophia and the codification of laws that underpin modern civil systems today. Yet it was also an era of devastation, marked by exhausting wars, terrifying riots, and the arrival of the first bubonic plague pandemic in recorded history. To understand Justinian is to understand a moment when the course of history hung in the balance. Was he a divinely inspired restorer of order, or, as his contemporary historian Procopius secretly whispered, a demon in disguise who brought ruin to humanity? Over the next 15 minutes, we will explore the rise, the wars, the laws, and the complex legacy of the man who dreamed the last dream of Rome.
Justinian was not born into royalty. He was born Petrus Sebastius around 482 AD in a small village called Tarisium in what is now North Macedonia. He came from a peasant family of Thraco-Roman or Illyro-Roman origin. His path to the throne was forged by his uncle, Justin, a peasant who walked to Constantinople, joined the imperial guard, and rose through the ranks to become Emperor Justin I in 518 AD. Justin, who was illiterate, relied heavily on his brilliant nephew. He adopted Petrus, giving him the name Justinian, and ensured he received a premier education in jurisprudence, theology, and history. By the time Justinian was crowned co-emperor in April 527 and sole emperor later that year, he was already the de facto ruler of the empire. But Justinian did not rule alone. In one of history's most fascinating partnerships, he married Theodora. She was a woman of humble and scandalous origins, an actress and, according to critics, a former courtesan associated with the Hippodrome's factions. Marriage between a man of senatorial rank and an actress was illegal, requiring Justinian to have his uncle pass a new law to legitimize their union. Theodora was not merely a consort. Justinian called her his partner in deliberations. She was his intellectual equal, a master of political maneuvering, and a fierce advocate for the rights of women. Their partnership faced its ultimate test early in the reign, during the Nika riots of 532 AD. Fueled by anger over high taxation and corrupt officials, the rival chariot racing factions, the Blues and the Greens, united against the emperor. The mob set fire to the city, destroying the original Hagia Sophia and proclaiming a rival emperor, Hypatius. Justinian, terrified, prepared to flee the capital by ship. It was Theodora who stopped him. In a council of frightened men, she reportedly stood and delivered one of the most famous speeches in history. As recorded by the historian Procopius, she declared that while flight was possible, she would not choose it. She said, "May I never be deprived of this purple robe. As for me, I agree with the adage that the royal purple is the noblest shroud." Bolstered by her courage, Justinian stayed. He dispatched his generals Belisarius and Mundus to the Hippodrome. They locked the gates and slaughtered 30,000 rioters, crushing the rebellion in a single brutal afternoon. The Nika riots left the city in ashes, but they cleared the board of Justinian's enemies. Now, with absolute power secured at home, he could turn his eyes toward the lost West.
Justinian's vision of renovatio imperii required the sword. His primary instrument of war was Belisarius, a general of immense talent and loyalty. The first target was the Vandal kingdom in North Africa. The Vandals had controlled the rich Roman provinces of Carthage for a century. In 533, Justinian sent Belisarius with a relatively small force of 15,000 men. The campaign was a stunning, lightning-fast success. Within months, Belisarius defeated the Vandal king Gelimer at the battles of Ad Decimum and Tricamarum. North Africa, the granary of the Western Mediterranean, was restored to the empire, along with Sardinia and Corsica. This swift victory emboldened Justinian to attempt the unthinkable, the recovery of Italy and the ancient city of Rome itself, then held by the Ostrogoths. In 535, Belisarius landed in Sicily and moved on to the Italian mainland. He captured Naples and in December 536 marched into Rome. But the Ostrogoths were not the Vandals. They rallied under their king, Vitiges, and besieged Belisarius in Rome for over a year. What followed was the Gothic War, a grinding 20-year conflict that devastated the Italian peninsula. Rome changed hands multiple times, depopulated and ruined by sieges. Justinian's mistrust of Belisarius, combined with Persian attacks in the east, complicated the war. Belisarius was recalled, and eventually the eunuch general Narses was sent with a massive army to finish the job. By 554, after the decisive battles of Busta Gallorum and Mons Lactarius, the Ostrogothic kingdom was destroyed. Justinian also intervened in a civil war in Visigothic Spain in 552, seizing the southeastern coast and establishing the province of Spania. By 555 AD, the Mediterranean was once again a Roman lake. Justinian had reconquered Dalmatia, Italy, North Africa, and southern Spain, but the cost was astronomical. The treasury was drained, and Italy, the spiritual heart of the Restoration, had been shattered, its infrastructure destroyed, and its population decimated by famine and war. While the maps showed a restored empire, the reality on the ground was far more fragile. While his armies fought in the west, Justinian waged a different kind of campaign in Constantinople, a campaign to build a unified Christian state governed by a single, coherent law. Justinian's most enduring legacy is likely the Corpus Juris Civilis, or the body of civil law. Upon taking the throne, he realized that centuries of Roman laws were a chaotic mess of contradictory edicts. He commissioned his legal minister, Tribonian, to clean the Augean stables of Roman jurisprudence. The result was a monumental three-part work: the Code, which organized imperial laws; the Digest, which summarized the writings of the great Roman jurists; and the Institutes, a textbook for students. Later, he added the Novels, new laws written mostly in Greek. This legal code humanized Roman law, partly under Theodora's influence. It banned the forced prostitution of women, gave mothers guardianship rights, and improved the lot of slaves. This code would be lost to the West for centuries, but upon its rediscovery in the 12th century, it became the foundation of civil law for much of modern Europe and beyond. Justinian also saw himself as the vice-regent of God. He enforced a strict Chalcedonian orthodoxy, persecuting heretics, pagans, and Manichaeans. However, this religious unity was complicated by Theodora, who openly protected the Monophysites,
a Christian sect deemed heretical by the state, hiding their leaders within the imperial palace itself. This strange duality may have been a political strategy to keep the eastern provinces loyal. Justinian's faith was given physical form in his building program. Following the destruction of the Nika riots, he resolved to rebuild the great church, the Hagia Sophia, on a scale never before seen. He hired two mathematician architects, Anthemius of Tralles and Isidore of Miletus. They designed a revolutionary structure, a massive dome 108 feet in diameter, appearing to hover over a square base through the use of pendentives. The dome was pierced by 40 windows at its base. When sunlight streamed through, the dome appeared to be suspended from heaven by fabled golden chains, as described by Procopius. Completed in just 5 years, the Hagia Sophia was the largest cathedral in the world for 1,000 years. It was a space of gold, silver, and light, designed to overwhelm the senses. Upon entering the finished masterpiece in 537 AD, Justinian is said to have looked up and proclaimed, "Solomon, I have outdone thee."
Yet the golden age of Justinian was shadowed by a catastrophe that no emperor could command. In 541 AD, rats aboard grain ships from Egypt brought a silent killer to Constantinople, the bubonic plague. The plague of Justinian was a demographic disaster. Procopius reported that at its peak, 10,000 people died every day in the capital. Modern estimates suggest the empire lost between 25 and 50% of its population. The economy collapsed. Crops rotted in the fields for lack of workers, and tax revenue plummeted. Justinian himself caught the plague, but survived, though the empire he ruled was permanently scarred. The plague, combined with the cost of endless wars, left the empire overextended. By the time Justinian died in 565 AD at the age of 83, the treasury was empty. Just 3 years after his death, the Lombards invaded Italy, undoing years of hard-fought conquest. So, how do we judge Justinian? Our view is colored by the historian Procopius. In his official histories, he praises Justinian's wars and buildings, but in his secret history, discovered centuries later, he describes a demon responsible for 1 trillion deaths, a tyrant who, along with Theodora, subverted the state. The truth lies between these extremes. Justinian was a man of immense ability and work ethic, a ruler who fundamentally reshaped the state. He preserved Roman law for the future, built one of the wonders of the world, and briefly reunited the Mediterranean. Yet his ambition perhaps exceeded his resources. The last Roman looked backward to a glorious past, but in doing so, he exhausted the state, inadvertently paving the way for the smaller, Greek-speaking Byzantine Empire of the Middle Ages. Justinian's reign was the final, brilliant sunset of the ancient world. He proved that the dream of Rome was powerful enough to reshape the map, but also that even the greatest of emperors remained subject to the forces of nature and the limits of power.
Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that shaped our world.